I never expected the evening to end with Isaiah's fist connecting squarely to that guy's jaw. He had sworn up and down for years that he was straight, the kind of guy who dated cheerleaders in high school and still talked about settling down with a wife and 2.5 kids someday. Yet there he stood in the middle of the crowded Los Angeles bar, chest heaving, knuckles already swelling, positioning himself between me and the three drunk strangers who had decided my quiet existence at the corner table was an invitation for violence. Touch him again, and I swear to God you'll regret it, Isaiah growled, voice low and steady in a way I had never heard before. The bouncer was already moving in, but the damage was done. My heart slammed against my ribs so hard I could barely breathe. Theo, I told myself, keep it together. You're 28, not some kid at his first pride parade. But the way Isaiah had moved, without hesitation, without thinking, shattered every safe boundary I had built around our friendship. We had met 3 years earlier at a mutual friend's housewarming in Silver Lake. He was a new guy from Texas, broad shoulders from construction work, easy laugh, the roommate who never minded when I brought dates home. I had been out since college. He had been straight since birth. We fell into an effortless rhythm. Late-night tacos after his shifts, Sunday hikes in Griffith Park, him crashing on my couch after bad dates with women who never seemed to stick. Never once had he looked at me the way he did tonight, eyes fierce and protective, like I was something worth fighting for in public. The bar cleared out fast after security escorted the aggressors away. Isaiah wiped blood from his split knuckle on his jeans and turned to me, jaw tight. You okay, man? His voice had returned to that familiar drawl, but something underneath it trembled. I nodded, words stuck somewhere between shock and gratitude. We walked the 6 blocks back to our apartment in silence, streetlights casting long shadows across the sidewalk. Inside, he headed straight for the freezer, wrapped ice in a dish towel, and pressed it to his hand without meeting my eyes. Isaiah, I finally said, voice barely above a whisper, why did you do that? He shrugged, the motion too casual for the weight in the room. They were assholes. Nobody talks to my friend like that. Your friend? The word landed like a stone. I had heard it 1,000 times, but tonight it felt like a shield he was hiding behind. I wanted to push, to ask what straight guy risks a broken hand for another man's honor in front of packed bar. Instead, I grabbed 2 beers from the fridge, handed him one, and changed the subject to tomorrow's Dodgers game. He relaxed a fraction, but the air between us had shifted, charged with something neither of us was ready to name. Sleep refused to come. I lay on my bed staring at the ceiling, replaying the moment his shoulder brushed mine as he stepped in front of me. The scent of his cologne, something woodsy and cheap from the drugstore, still clung to my shirt where he had pulled me behind him. By morning, the bruise on his knuckle had turned purple, and he was already in the kitchen making coffee like nothing had happened. Morning, Theo, he said, sliding a mug across the counter. His smile was the same crooked one that had greeted me every day for 3 years. But his eyes lingered a second too long on the fading red mark on my cheek from where the stranger had shoved me. At work that day, graphic design studio downtown, I found myself sketching his profile instead of the client logo I was supposed to be finishing. The strong line of his jaw, the way his dark hair fell across his forehead when he was focused. I deleted the file before anyone could see. This was dangerous territory. Isaiah was straight. He had said himself the night we watched that documentary about conversion therapy, and he muttered, "Thank God I never had to deal with any of that crap." I had laughed it off then. Now the laugh felt hollow. That evening he came home late, smelling of sawdust and sweat. Rough day on site, he said, kicking off his boots. We ordered Thai food and ate on the couch, some mindless action movie playing in the background. Halfway through, he paused the screen. Look, about last night, I don't want you thinking I'm some hero or anything. Just did what any decent person would do. Any decent straight person? The words slipped out before I could stop them. His gaze flicked to mine, something unreadable flashing across his face. Yeah, exactly. He unpaused the movie, but the silence that followed stretched longer than any explosion on screen. I told myself to let it go. Some lines you don't cross with your best friend, especially when one of you has everything to lose. But the seed had been planted, and no amount of denial could stop it from taking root. The next 3 days blurred into a careful dance of avoidance. Isaiah left for work before I woke up and returned after I had already retreated to my room with headphones on. I threw myself into deadlines, designing campaign graphics for a local nonprofit until my eyes burned. On Thursday night, he finally broke the pattern, knocking softly on my door with 2 slices of pepperoni pizza from our favorite spot. "Truce?" he asked, holding the box like a peace offering. We sat on the fire escape, overlooking the twinkling lights of Koreatown, the warm night air thick with the smell of street food vendors below. "I talked to my mom today," he said between bites. "She's coming out next month for my cousin's wedding. Wants to meet my roommate." He used air quotes around the word, but his tone stayed light. I knew what that meant. His family back in small-town Texas still believed the version of Isaiah, who played varsity football and took the homecoming queen to prom. They had no idea their son shared an apartment with an out-gay man. "You gonna tell her the truth?" I asked carefully. "Truth about what?" "I've got a great roommate who puts up with my mess." He laughed, but it didn't reach his eyes. "She doesn't need to know everything, Theo. Some things are private." Private. The word lodged in my throat. I wanted to ask if defending me in a bar full of strangers counted as private too, but I swallowed it with another bite of pizza. Instead, I steered the conversation to safer ground. His latest construction project, the Dodgers' playoff chances. By the time we finished eating, the tension had eased into something almost normal. Almost. Friday brought the first crack. I was at the gym after work, earbuds in, when Isaiah walked in. He rarely joined me here. He preferred early morning runs. Yet there he was, spotting me on the bench press without being asked. "You're lifting heavy today," he noted, hands hovering near the bar. Sweat glistened on his forearms, and I forced my gaze back to the ceiling. When I finished the set, he clapped my shoulder, the touch lingering a fraction longer than necessary. "Good job, man." Later in the locker room, he stripped off his shirt without a second thought, the way straight guys do. I kept my eyes on my own locker, but the mirror betrayed me. His reflection showed the same easy confidence I had always admired. Broad chest, faint scar above his left eyebrow from a childhood bike accident. He caught me looking. For a split second, neither of us moved. Then he grinned. "Take a picture, it'll last longer." The joke landed flat, and we both knew it. That night, we went to a house party in Echo Park thrown by my coworker Lena. Isaiah tagged along after I mentioned there would be a grill and cold beer. Within an hour, he was charming the entire backyard, telling construction horror stories that had everyone laughing. I watched from the sidelines, nursing a drink, until Lena sidled up. "Your roommate is something else," she said. "You two ever?" "Ever what?" She raised an eyebrow. "Come on, Theo. The way he looks at you when he thinks no one's watching." I laughed it off, but her words followed me home. At 2 in the morning, I found Isaiah on the couch, staring at his phone screen with a frown. "Everything okay?" I asked. He hesitated, then turned the phone toward me. A text from his mother. "Can't wait to meet your roommate. Is he bringing anyone special to the wedding?" Isaiah's thumb hovered over the reply button. "She thinks I'm dating someone," he muttered. "Keeps asking when I'll settle down." "Then tell her the truth," I said softly. "Or at least tell her you're not dating anyone right now." His eyes met mine, dark and conflicted. "The truth is complicated, Theo." He didn't elaborate, and I didn't push. But when I woke the next morning, he had already left for a Saturday shift. On the kitchen counter sat a note. "Coffee's fresh. Don't wait up tonight." Underneath it scribbled almost as an afterthought. "Thanks for last night." The weekend stretched into a quiet reckoning. I spent Sunday at the beach alone, letting the waves drown out the questions circling my mind. By Monday, the bruise on Isaiah's hand had faded to yellow, but the memory of his defense burned brighter than ever. Something was shifting between us, slow and inevitable, like tectonic plates moving beneath the surface of our ordinary life. I just didn't know yet whether we would survive the earthquake. Isaiah's mother arrived on a Tuesday afternoon, suitcase in hand and Southern charm dialed to maximum. Evelyn Carter was exactly as I had pictured her from his stories. Petite, silver-streaked hair pinned neatly, eyes sharp enough to see through any facade. She hugged her son so tightly I thought his ribs might crack, then turned to me with the same warmth. You must be Theo. Isaiah's told me so much about you. We spent the first evening at a quiet Italian place in Pasadena. Evelyn asked about my work, my family back in Oregon, whether I had a nice young lady in my life. I answered honestly about being gay, watching her reaction. She didn't flinch. Well, love is love, sugar. As long as you're happy. Isaiah's shoulders visibly relaxed across the table, but his knee kept bouncing under the cloth. Later, back at the apartment, Evelyn insisted on sleeping on the pull-out couch so we could keep our rooms. I don't want to put anyone out, she said. The next day, she wanted to see how my boys live. Isaiah took her to his construction site first. Then we all drove up the coast to Malibu. On the way back, Evelyn asked about the wedding. Your cousin's marrying that sweet girl from church. You bring a date? Isaiah. He kept his eyes on the road. Haven't decided yet, Mom. She patted his arm. Well, Theo here seems like fine company if you need a +1. The comment hung in the car like exhaust. That night, after Evelyn had gone to bed, Isaiah found me in the kitchen washing dishes. She doesn't mean anything by it, he said quietly. I know. He dried a plate, movements deliberate. She likes you. A lot. Keeps saying what a good influence you are. I turned off the faucet. And what do you think? His answer came after a long pause. I think she's right. He set the plate down and walked out without another word. The following morning, Evelyn suggested a hike in Runyon Canyon. Halfway up the trail, she pulled me aside while Isaiah scouted ahead. He's different since he moved here, she confided. Happier. I think you've been good for him, Theo. He needed a real friend. Her kindness made the guilt sharper. I was the friend secretly cataloging every accidental touch, every lingering glance. That evening, Isaiah and I stayed up late after Evelyn turned in. He opened a bottle of whiskey his uncle had sent from Texas. 2 glasses in, he started talking about high school, the pressure to be the perfect son, the girl he dated senior year who broke his heart when she left for college. I thought that was it, you know? Get married, have kids, follow the plan. He swirled the amber liquid. Then I met you. The confession landed softly, but its weight pressed against my chest. What does that mean, Isaiah? He looked at me, then really looked, eyes glassy from the whiskey and something deeper. I don't know anymore. We didn't kiss. We didn't even touch. But the air between us thickened until breathing felt like swimming. The next day, Evelyn announced she was extending her stay to help with wedding preparations. Isaiah's face tightened, but he didn't argue. I threw myself into work, designing the couple's save-the-date cards while pretending my own life wasn't unraveling. On Friday night, the 3 of us attended a pre-wedding barbecue at his cousin's house in the valley. The backyard was full of relatives who greeted Isaiah like the prodigal son. When one uncle asked if he had finally found a good woman, Isaiah laughed it off. But later, when a drunk cousin made a crude joke about roommates who were a little too close, Isaiah's hand found my shoulder and squeezed hard. The gesture was small, but Evelyn noticed. Her smile faltered for the first time. That night, back home, she cornered me in the kitchen while Isaiah showered. Is there something I should know, Theo? Her voice stayed gentle, but the question carried decades of Southern expectation. I told her the truth I could manage. Your son is the best person I know. She studied me for a long moment, then nodded. Just be careful with his heart. He's more fragile than he lets on. Isaiah emerged in sweatpants, hair damp, and the 3 of us watched an old movie in silence. When Evelyn finally went to bed, he turned to me. She suspects something. Maybe she should, I whispered. He didn't deny it. Instead, he reached across the couch and brushed his thumb over the back of my hand once. Quick, tentative, gone before I could react. The touch burned long after he had retreated to his room. I lay awake wondering how much longer we could keep pretending the ground beneath us wasn't already cracking wide open. The wedding weekend arrived like a storm we had all seen coming but refused to prepare for. Isaiah's cousin married in a vineyard outside Santa Barbara. White chairs lined up under strings of fairy lights, the Pacific glittering in the distance. Evelyn had bought me a tie to match Isaiah's, navy with thin silver stripes. You 2 look sharp together, she said, adjusting my collar with motherly pride. Isaiah's jaw clenched, but he smiled for the photos. During the ceremony, I sat 2 rows behind the family. When the couple exchanged vows about loving each other through every storm, Isaiah's shoulders tensed visibly. At the reception, he danced with his mother first, then reluctantly with a bridesmaid who flirted shamelessly. I watched from the bar, nursing a gin and tonic, until he appeared beside me. "Dance with me," he said. It wasn't a question. We moved to the edge of the dance floor, away from prying eyes. His hands settled at the small of my back, warm through the thin fabric of my shirt. "This doesn't mean anything," he murmured, but his grip tightened when the music slowed. I could feel his heartbeat against my chest, steady and fast. "Isaiah, just let me have this one song." Afterward, we slipped outside to the vineyard path. Moonlight silvered the leaves. "I can't keep doing this," he said suddenly, voice rough, pretending I don't feel it. "Feel what?" I needed to hear him say it. He stopped walking, turned to face me. "You, us, whatever this is." His hands came up to frame my face, thumbs brushing my cheekbones. I've been lying to everyone, including myself. That night at the bar, I wasn't defending a friend. I was defending someone A voice cut through the darkness. "Isaiah, that you, son?" His uncle's silhouette appeared at the path's entrance. Isaiah dropped his hands like they were burned. The moment shattered. We walked back in silence, the weight of almost words hanging heavier than ever. The drive home, the next day, was torture. Evelyn chatted about the beautiful ceremony, but Isaiah's knuckles were white on the steering wheel. When we dropped her at the airport that evening, she hugged me extra tight. "Take care of each other," she whispered. Then she was gone, leaving the apartment echoing with everything unsaid. Isaiah disappeared into his room for 2 hours. When he emerged, he looked wrecked. "I need to tell you something." We sat at the kitchen table, beers untouched between us. After the bar incident, I started seeing someone. A therapist. Not because I'm broken, but because I couldn't stop thinking about you. About what it would mean if I wasn't straight. The confession landed softly, but its impact rattled every bone in my body. He had been carrying this alone for weeks. Sessions twice a week, late night, drives to clear his head. "I'm scared, Theo. My family, my job, everything I thought I knew, it's all shifting. And the worst part is, I don't want it to stop." I reached across the table and took his hand. This time he didn't pull away. "We don't have to figure it all out tonight," I said. "But you don't have to do it alone anymore." That night, we didn't sleep together. We talked until sunrise, about his childhood fears, my college heartbreaks, the million tiny moments that had led us here. When exhaustion finally won, he fell asleep on the couch with his head in my lap. I stroked his hair and wondered how something so simple could feel like the biggest risk of my life. Monday brought reality crashing back. At work, I received an email from my boss offering a promotion that would mean relocating to New York for 6 months. I stared at the screen for a full minute before closing it. Isaiah texted me during lunch. "Dinner tonight? My treat." I replied yes, heart hammering. Over pasta at our favorite Italian spot, he told me about the phone call with his mother that morning. She asked if anything was going on between us. I didn't lie, but I didn't tell the whole truth either. He set his fork down. "I want to tell her, Theo. I want to tell everyone. But I'm terrified of what happens next." We walked home along the boulevard, shoulders brushing. At the apartment door, he paused. "Stay with me tonight? Just to sleep." I nodded. In his bed, we lay facing each other in the dark. "Whatever comes," he whispered, "I'm done running from this." His fingers found mine under the covers, and for the first time since the bar fight, the future felt possible instead of terrifying. The promotion email sat unanswered in my inbox for 3 days while Isaiah and I navigated the fragile, new territory of honesty. We didn't label anything. No boyfriend talk, no public displays. But every evening he reached for my hand on the couch. Every morning he made coffee for 2. Small rituals that stitched us closer even as the world outside pressed in. His mother called on Wednesday. I heard only Isaiah's side of the conversation from the living room. "Yeah, Mom, no, it's not like that. Okay, fine." Theo and I were figuring things out. Silence stretched. Then, "I know what Dad will say. I'm not ready for that fight yet." When he hung up, his face was pale. "She wants us both to come to Texas for Christmas. Together." The invitation felt like a test we hadn't studied for. I told him about the New York offer that night. His reaction was immediate. Take it. It's a huge step for your career. But his eyes betrayed the fear. 6 months apart, after finally admitting our feelings? The timing couldn't have been worse. Friday brought the first real test. My college friend Marcus threw a rooftop party in downtown LA. Half the guest list was queer, the other half straight allies. Isaiah had never been to anything like it. He stayed close to me at first, hand brushing mine when no one was looking. Then someone recognized him from the bar incident weeks earlier. "Dude, that was badass," the guy said, clapping Isaiah on the back. "Standing up for your boyfriend like that." The word boyfriend landed like a grenade. Isaiah froze. I waited, heart in my throat. He could have laughed it off, corrected the assumption. Instead, he looked at me, really looked, and said, "Yeah, he is." The admission was quiet, but the entire circle heard it. Applause and cheers followed. Isaiah's ears turned red, but he smiled, small, genuine, terrified, and triumphant all at once. Later, alone on a rooftop edge overlooking the city lights, he pulled me into a hug that lasted minutes. "I'm proud of us," he whispered against my hair. "Whatever happens in Texas, whatever happens with your job, I'm in this." The high lasted exactly 48 hours. Sunday morning his father called. Evelyn had apparently filled him in. The conversation was short, loud, and ended with Isaiah hanging up, phone clattering across the counter. He said, "If I show up in Texas with you, it's over." Disowned. Just like that. His voice cracked on the last word. I held him while he shook. For the first time since the bar fight, I saw the boy from Texas beneath the strong construction worker. The one who had spent 29 years trying to be exactly who his father wanted. "You don't have to choose," I told him. "We can figure something else out." But we both knew Christmas in Texas wasn't happening. That week I accepted the New York promotion. Isaiah helped me pack boxes, labeling them with his neat handwriting. Every marker stroke felt like another nail in the coffin of our fragile beginning. The night before my flight, we lay awake until dawn. 6 months isn't forever, he said, tracing patterns on my chest. "I'll visit. You'll visit. We'll make it work." At LAX, he kissed me in public for the first time, slow, deliberate, right in the middle of the departure hall. Passers-by stared. A few smiled. "I love you, Theo," he said against my lips. The words I had waited months to hear. I said them back, throat tight, then boarded the plane carrying both our hearts across the country. New York was colder and louder than I remembered. The apartment the company provided felt sterile. Every night we video called, sharing mundane details, my new office view, his latest project site, the Dodgers score. But the distance stretched the cracks. His father's silence grew heavier. My new colleagues assumed I was single. One Friday, a coworker asked me out. I turned him down gently, but the guilt lingered. Was I asking Isaiah to upend his entire life while I build a new one 3,000 miles away? The breaking point came in week 7. Isaiah's mother called me directly. "He's not eating, Theo. He's not sleeping. He won't talk to his father, and he won't come home. I'm scared for my boy." I booked a flight for that weekend without telling him. When I showed up at our old apartment door, Isaiah opened it and stared like I was a ghost. Then he pulled me inside and held on so tight I couldn't breathe. "Don't leave again," he whispered. "Not yet." We spent the weekend talking through every fear. On Sunday, he drove me back to the airport. "I'm coming out to my dad properly," he said at the gate. Face to face. No more hiding. The promise scared me as much as it filled me with pride. 6 months suddenly felt like an eternity in an instant all at once. Christmas arrived wrapped in snow and uncertainty. I flew back to Los Angeles for 2 weeks, trading New York skyscrapers for palm trees and the familiar scent of Isaiah's cologne. He picked me up at LAX wearing the same navy coat from the wedding, eyes brighter than I had seen in months. "Dad agreed to meet," he said in the car. Neutral ground. That diner off the 101. The meeting happened 3 days later. Isaiah's father, tall, weathered, the kind of man who measured worth in calluses and silence, sat across from us in a vinyl booth. He looked at his son for a long minute, then at me. "You make him happy?" The question was gruff, direct. I nodded. "Then I guess that's what matters." It wasn't acceptance with open arms, but it was a beginning. Isaiah's shoulders dropped for the first time in months. We spent Christmas Day at Evelyn's hotel suite, opening gifts and eating too much ham. She hugged us both and didn't ask questions we weren't ready to answer. That night, back in our apartment, Isaiah pulled out a small box. Inside was a key on a simple silver chain. I signed a new lease. Bigger place. Room for both of us when you're back for good. Tears stung my eyes. New York still waited, but the 6 months had become 4 with a promotion adjustment. We made plans, weekend visits, daily calls, therapy for both of us to navigate the changes. On New Year's Eve, we stood on the same fire escape where our story had quietly begun months earlier. Fireworks lit the sky over the city. Isaiah turned to me. "Remember the bar?" How could I forget? I was so scared that night. Not those guys. Of how much I already cared. He took my hands. "I'm not scared anymore, Theo. Not of loving you. Not of who I am." We kissed as the clock struck midnight, the future stretching bright and uncertain ahead of us. There would be more conversations with his family, more adjustments to my career, more moments when the world tried to remind us that love like ours still required courage. But we had already survived the hardest part, the moment when he stopped swearing he was straight and started living the truth. 6 months later, I moved back permanently. We furnished a new apartment together, arguing over paint colors and laughing until our sides hurt. Isaiah came out at work the week I returned. His crew surprised him with a rainbow hard hat and zero drama. Small victories stacked up like bricks in the foundation we were building. Looking back now, standing on the balcony of our home, overlooking the Pacific, I realized the real shock wasn't the punch in the bar or the midnight confession. It was discovering that the man who swore he was straight had been carrying the same quiet hope I had all along. True or false? Sometimes the bravest thing a man can do is stop pretending the love he feels is anything less than real.